Hello, everyone. I'm going to give it another couple minutes to let some students come in. Right now, I think the best way to prepare for our meeting is just to brainstorm some questions that you may have about our class in general, my writing expectations, or any of the or the assignment that's coming up next week. Okay, come to think of it, we have 7 students right now, and that is, oh, there we go, there's number 8. And I know that there were about 9 of us that said we could make this time. Yes, good morning to you all. I have a really bad habit of jumping right into my my Zoom sessions with a plan that I have, rather than basic social greetings. So, hi everyone. If you can hear me okay, which I'm hoping you can, give me a thumbs up reaction. Good, awesome. All right, this is our first time working together in this format. I will do this on occasion throughout the semester. This seems like we've got really good turnout right now. And because this isn't designed to be a lecture, you know, your questions about lecture and about the upcoming assignments really are the motivation here. So I really like it to be led by you. So with that being said, whenever you do have a question or a comment, please feel free to unmute yourself and pop in. The other thing that you can do, especially if I'm talking or a classmate is, and you don't want to forget your comment, is to put it into the chat, right? I call this a parking lot. All right, just park your questions there. I'll make sure to review the chat to, yeah, just to see if you've said anything in there. Anything else that I want to say? Oh, I love seeing your faces. So if you feel comfortable, please turn your video on, but I understand these are weird times and we aren't always in the most professional settings when we're doing our Zoom. So if you don't feel comfortable, that's okay. But if you can, that would be great. All right, so why don't I leave it open to you all? Well, first of all, why don't we do this? How many of you, if you are looking at Django Unchained, please type in Django Unchained in the chat. And if you're looking at Ex Machina, please type in Ex Machina. So in the chat right now, let me know which movie you are planning to analyze. Please go ahead and do that now. Catherine, Ex Machina, nice. Catherine, all right, great. Chloe, Desiree, all right, so we've got half and half right now. Tisa, Django, okay. All right, so majority here are Django Unchained. Yeah, and you know, if you have Netflix, right, it's available there, which I'm glad because initially when I would use this movie, it was on Netflix, then it went away and it's recently come back. So I'm happy about its availability. And Ex Machina is nice that it's also available on Canopy. You will need to watch the movie multiple times, okay? And by the way, before I get too much further into this, I want you all to know I'm recording the Q&A, so that way I can post this and you can review this at your leisure, okay? All right, so let's get started. Questions about lecture or about the upcoming essay?
Yeah, I have a question. I have 2 questions about
Is it Desiree?
Yes.
Thank you, Desiree. Yeah, go for
it. Is there a specific length that the rough draft should be?
You know, I would say the minimum is 2 pages, okay?
Okay.
In the past, and you might even see it in my syllabus somewhere, or maybe in one of my lecture pages that needs to be edited, I used to say you should have at least 75% of the length of the paper. I think that's good practice, right? So if you have a 4-page paper, then, you know, you should at least get 3 pages in. You know, I think that you want to get the majority of the writing done, okay? And really, the most important parts are the body paragraphs, and especially with this week, you all are learning how I like introductions to be, okay? So Desiree, as far as a requirement goes, you need 2 pages to be able to participate in the peer review next week and to get any kind of credit for the rough draft. But my personal, like a good practice, I think 75% of the total is probably going to put you in a good place. Okay.
Okay, sounds good. And then I have another question.
Yeah,
Does the final draft have to be like drastically different or altered from the rough draft?
No, it's up to you.
Okay.
Some students find that they scrap their rough draft because, I mean, there's all kinds of reasons why we do it, right? So no, there's no requirement of consistency between the rough draft and the final draft. In an ideal situation, there is coherence, right, between those 2 things, right? But that requires planning and preparation. So no, it is not a requirement that the 2 resemble each other. Okay.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah. Great question. Other questions? Well, if there's no other questions at the moment about length, sorry, about the essay, then the thing that I would like to kind of review with you all, or at least emphasize, is how important it is to write that introduction. Okay. Now, I think intros are the hardest things to write, and they don't need to be the first thing that you write, especially if you're having difficulty figuring out what your argument is. What might be the best strategy is start by writing your body paragraphs. Okay. That's the structure we've been focusing on for the last 3 weeks, right? Every body paragraph should begin with a topic sentence claim. You follow it with a reason and then 2 support sandwiches, okay? That is a structure that you all need to know by heart. Those are the elements that are required that I grade you on, okay? And just get comfortable with them. That's how it's going to be for every paper. I also think that it's an easier structure to do than the introduction, because you've got 1 claim that I want that you should make, okay? So really simplify the claims that you make. Desiree, it's nice to see you. Thank you for turning your video on. Batista, thank you as well. I appreciate that. So with your paragraph, you've got 1 point that you're trying to make, and all of the support is devoted to helping you make that 1 point. That's much easier than writing the intro, because the introduction is where you have to establish, in a sense, the need to make such an argument. Okay, and that takes a lot more thought. So it might be more comfortable for you, just jump into listing what are some claims that you can make. Okay, is anyone taking a certain approach with the essays right now, like where they're focusing on 1 character and they're deciding, should they do 1 character, or should they do multiple characters? What are different strategies you guys are applying right now? Anything? You know what? This might be a good time. Let's go back to the prompt. Okay, let's go to our week 4 module. This is our home page. Okay, so let's see. I don't see the prompt in week 4. Did I put it in week 3? There it is. Essay 1 prompt film analysis. All right, the most important part of this prompt, I think, is this question here in bold. Does the film reinforce conventional views of gender, or does it resist them? How so? be specific, okay? That question is meant to help you gather evidence and come up with your argument, okay? It's a very, very important question. You are not limited to this question. I definitely encourage you to make that question much more specific. Like we could replace the word gender with masculinity or femininity, okay? So it's definitely something that you can enhance, okay? But this critical question here is going to be in the middle of your introduction. It is going to serve as the problem section, okay? Now you need to set this problem up with some context. And that's what the discussion board is about this week, okay? There are different ways that you can go about doing this. And that's where I want you guys to practice on the discussion board. What are different approaches to providing context, okay, for this film, whichever one you're looking at, whether it's Ex Machina or whether it is Django Unchained. You can provide context that's gender focused, right? You know, normally we think of, or at least the normative view of masculinity is X, Y, and Z, right? And then that leads you to make some contrasting observations about the men we see in Ex Machina or the men we see in Django Unchained. And you provide a few, like I said, observations. And then that leads to this question here, because what we're trying to figure out is, where's the film's position on this, right? Is the film perpetuating this idea of this is what masculinity should be, right? Or is it maybe trying to challenge it and ask us to think about it in a different way? Okay, so I can't emphasize enough how important this question is here for you, okay? It will help you get started writing your body paragraphs, okay? Especially if you don't feel ready to write the introduction just yet, okay? Jump into writing your body paragraphs by answering this question here in the center. And as you get more comfort and you start to kind of think through this idea more, then you can start to think about, well, what context do I need to really emphasize how important this problem is, okay? That's what the context is meant to do, okay? Context and problem work together to create almost like a surprise, right? You think it was this way, but what's going on in the film? Because we're seeing something different, right? Why might it be presented in this new way, okay? I think introductions are probably, as I mentioned before, the hardest thing to write. And it's the hardest skill, I think, to learn for our semester, right? And it might take us a few papers to get it, but we need to start doing it now. We need to start seeing those elements present, okay? Because it is so difficult, don't let it hold you back from drafting, okay? Jump right into the body paragraphs and then work your way backwards to the introduction, all right? Any questions about strategies for writing or anything I just mentioned about the critical question? Let's check the chat.
I have a question about MLA format.
Yeah, go for it.
It says in the film analysis prompt that we need to include one MLA works cited page. Would that be for the required one scholarly source?
Yes, and for the film, you need to cite the film, and you know, works cited pages are alphabetical order, right? So you might see when you look at the 16th edition of MLA that they give different options for citing a film. Like, let's say you were in a acting class, right? And you're citing a film, you might be emphasizing the performances of the actors, right? Well, that's not the case here, right? We're more focused on something general about the way the film has been created. And that's where the director kind of gets that primary credit, right? So I think MLA suggests you can either start with the director or you can start with the actor, right? So I would say start with the director, okay? But that needs to be cited, and the, let's see. And Batista, you said I did ask that you cite a scholarly source. Yeah, from one of the class readings, that's right. So when it comes to the class readings, what you should know is the kind of source they're coming from. The book that I gave you all is called an anthology, Okay. So what you should be looking for, the citation format, is called a work in an anthology. So, this is not something that is, it's definitely worth some points, okay? Making small mistakes aren't going to cost you necessarily like an A, right? Leaving out a works cited page definitely will, because the MLA is worth at least 5% of your grade, okay? And if we're talking a 100-point paper, that's 5 points. And if you're on the cusp of, an A and you just don't have your works cited, you're going to drop down to a mid B, okay? So that's something to be aware of. If you accidentally cite it as an anthology instead of a work in an anthology, you'll lose like a point, but that's not as grievous an error as just not doing a works cited. Okay, you really can't afford to do that. Now, work in an anthology, these are all essays, okay? And essays are considered short works. So that means that the essay title goes in quotes, okay? Obviously, it's author's name, essay title, and then the editors of the anthology title, and all the publication information. But you can find that in the MLA guide, which should be in our supplement module. And I might have also posted it in the week 2 or week 3 module as well. I'm gonna confirm that now. And Batista, as far as your other question goes about focusing mainly on just one character, you probably could. I always emphasize writing in a much more focused way. Okay. Sometimes though, students get concerned about just focusing on one character. Your job is to answer the question on the prompt. Okay. And if you can answer that question effectively, articulately, cogently, with analyzing one character, then great, you can do that. I don't have a limit on that. Okay. Some of you may find you can answer that question more effectively by looking at a range of characters. Okay. If you did for some reason choose one character, then I would need to see a range of behaviors that you are analyzing that somehow embody a range of gender conventions. Okay. So range is something that's really important here. Okay. Being able to locate a range of behaviors, of conventions, not only demonstrates complexity in argument, but it helps you to avoid repetition, right? Some of us get stuck repeating kind of like the same point. It might be because you keep looking for the same evidence because you are making the same point over and over again, right? So look for those curious, strange things, those inconsistencies of character, right? And plot even, because those things will help you reveal different and competing views, okay, within a story, right? Within maybe a representation of a character or an idea, such as gender, okay? So I am flexible. It's more about answering that question on the prompt. Okay, so I don't see it in the week 3. I'm going to check in the supplement right now. There it is. MLA Guide 8th edition is in the supplement. I'm also going to publish right now this voice thread on norms of gender and sexuality. Okay. Now, I apologize. The voice thread that I included about the introduction, I actually don't have any audio commentary on yet. I will try to provide some audio commentary before the end of the week, and I'll make sure to announce that. The voice thread on thesis writing, I do have audio commentary on, okay? This voice thread here on some norms of gender and sexuality, there is audio commentary, I believe. And really what I did here was I looked back at our readings and I listed the norms that each of our writers kind of collected and discussed, okay? So Lorber, Schwartz, and Patricia Hill Collins, okay? So it's basically a study tool, okay? You do not need to examine all of these norms, but if you're struggling with maybe the language to articulate some of these norms, look at what the scholars did, right? Look at how they presented that language and those ideas. And keep in mind here too, they are not advocating for these norms, okay? Their job is to examine cultural behaviors, right? And to catalog what do they see, right? And what have other scholars seen, okay? And then they try to analyze it, right? Why might people be acting in this particular way, right? What values and beliefs do they attach to these actions, okay? So keep in mind the critical distance that the scholars have with the work that they're looking at. And all three of these writers that we start the class with, they are all scholars, okay? I think Patricia Hill Collins's work on hegemonic masculinity, not just me, but lots of people do, right, is really, it's well written, it's very clear, even though it is critically dense, right? The more you read it, okay, and the more we talk about gender in this critical way, I think the easier it'll be to understand, okay? So nonetheless, there's a voice thread that I've just published for you. It's in the supplement. I put stuff here that I don't want to bog you down with, right? It's like, hey, if you want to go that extra mile, okay, and this resource would be helpful to you, it's over here, as opposed to being in the module for the particular week. The other thing that I'm going to publish right now, actually, maybe I'm going to look at it first before I publish it, but I'll do it before Friday, okay? The focus for this week is writing the introduction, but writing the introduction helps you to construct the body of the paper because you know what your argument is, okay? I know I mentioned earlier, it might be more comfortable for you to jump into the body. If it's preventing you from writing, if waiting until you have a perfect understanding of your argument and ready to write your introduction is somehow preventing you from writing the paper, then jump right into the body, okay? And then you can always go back and revise. But if you can, go through and complete the pre-writing exercises, those little practice quizzes that I put in the module. They're not graded. It's basically just a little writing journal that's online, okay? You can take those quizzes as much as you want, but I ask you questions that should help you come up with things that, well, will be good for your writing, okay? They're writing prompts, okay? So if you follow those steps and you complete those, they should help you out and they should put you in a position to do this right here, which is drafting the body of the paper, okay? Really, the subtext to this little lecture that I have in the supplement, it'll be in the week 5 module, but I know it's probably better for you to have this before you write the rough draft. So I'll make sure to have it before the weekend. I imagine some of us will be writing during that time. What it really tries to emphasize here is you have an outline, and the outline consists of your problem, your thesis, and then claims, okay? Claims guide your paper. You can see the logic of your paper by looking at what claim am I making in each paragraph, okay? That's an informal outline, and that's really what that lecture, A Return to Reason, Assembling the Body of the Paper, that's really what it's trying to say. It's advocating for you to create an informal outline where you make claims that support your thesis, okay? So I talked with you all about how a body paragraph starts with a claim, and then it provides a reason, and then 2 support sandwiches, right? Well, that's a microcosm of the whole paper, okay? Your introduction is like the topic sentence for the paper, okay? You have a major claim there. You should then be making subsequent claims that are attached to your thesis. It's almost like you make your thesis and then you write the word because underneath your thesis. And then you list, how do I know this is true? How do I know this character embodies hegemonic masculinity, right? How do I know this film is reinforcing conventional femininity, okay? Well, these are my reasons. Those reasons become topic sentences for your body paragraphs, okay? So for a paper of this length, and that's basically what this lecture here, I'll pull it open right now. We'll see how bad it is. Might not be that bad, okay? Yeah, I think that that's fine, but that's basically what this advocates for, okay? have your thesis, write the word because, start listing what are your reasons for knowing that this thesis is true, like that this film does reinforce conventional gender views, or that the film resists it because X, Y, Z. Okay. Now this paper, I believe, is 5 pages. So if you're writing a 5-page paper, you figure MLA header, introduction and conclusion are 1 page. Okay. So your intros should probably be about half a page all by itself. Okay. Take your time to study the lecture, understand how important that is. Basically what this means is that you've got 4 pages of body paragraphs. Some of you, when you write your body paragraphs, are going to feel very comfortable having 1 body paragraph fit a whole page, right? So that means that you should come up with 4 subclaims for your thesis, okay? I think that that's an ideal situation and that you probably should prepare for less than ideal. And it might be safer for you to come up with 5 claims, okay? It's always easier to cut, right? It's always easier to remove something than to try to add something at the last second, right? So we're still early in the paper writing phase right now. I think you should prepare yourself to come up with 5 reasons for why you believe in your thesis, okay? That the film either reinforces or resists, okay? All right, so I will make sure to publish it. It doesn't look like there's anything too egregious here that I need to check on. This outline, sorry, this pre-write practice quiz you can see is all about doing what I just said, coming up with your informal outline. And an informal outline doesn't have any evidence, okay? It's just a blueprint. It's like, where am I gonna go here, okay? It's not actual building materials. That's what the quotes are. I'm gonna check the chat and see. That's right, yeah. Yeah, okay. Any other questions here? I know I've said a lot in a short amount of time, but it is important to review the intro and then what's coming next, drafting your body paragraph. So any final questions before we close out our little review session?
I have a question.
Yes, Catherine, go ahead.
Okay, so the final draft would be due on September 24th, correct?
You know, I don't know the date off the top of my head, but I do know it is in week 6, and I think it is Friday of week 6. So I can check the prompt right now, but that is the 24th. So that sounds right. I'll go back. Did you just want to confirm that? Was that all?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Yeah. I apologize for any background noise. My wife and I are both professors and she's holding a meeting at the other end of the house. So you might be hearing some murmurings there too. Let's go into the week 3 module and confirm that is the case. Okay, yeah, Friday of week 6, and that is the 24th. Remember, it's 5 pages. Okay, that should be in bold, right? And when I say 5 pages, I mean top to bottom. Okay, writing 4 pages and then, you know, a sentence or 2 on the top of the 5th page is not going to cut it. Anything less than 5 pages is a non-passing grade. Okay, so just keep that in mind. Once you write 5 full pages, you're in the C to A range. Okay, and then the thing that determines where you're at in the C to A range is the quality of thought, the quality of organization in each of those paragraphs, okay? Anything else that I would want to point out to you here? This paper is worth 100 points. I believe our class, if I remember right, is 500 points. So this paper is worth 20% of your grade, okay? You are allowed to turn in the paper late. I don't recommend that, but you are allowed to do that. You also are allowed to redo the paper. So if the grade, if you know you can do a better job, maybe you realize in retrospect you should have taken more time, right? That's fine. We set up a meeting. The meeting is a contract of sorts. We talk about what are the areas that need improvement. as well as we highlight what are the strengths, what are the things you should keep doing. And then you go about and rewrite it. It is easier to do a redo if you turn your paper in on time. You know, if you turn in your paper like a month late, we're already working on paper 2, and I'm going to always prioritize the first grade for a particular assignment than the redo. Okay. So that's just, I mean, yeah, you know, redos are a privilege, right? That's not a requirement. So anyway, you have those options available to you, and, you know, use them strategically. Okay. Any other questions?
I have a question.
Yes, Regina. Thank you. Go ahead.
Yeah, so you say at least to include at least one scholarly secondary source from among our recent class readings.
Yes.
Is there like do you want like a certain amount of our essay to be dedicated to that part, or is it just like however we find fit to put it into our essay?
Yeah, so, you know, there's just too much to lecture on in the first few weeks of school. We talk more about how to effectively incorporate secondary sources into your papers later in the semester. Okay. For right now, this is what I would say. You need 2 support sandwiches for every paragraph. Okay. The priority should be the primary source. That's the film. Okay. Students, they make the error, they have made the error in the past of using mostly the scholarly source, right? And they don't provide any primary evidence, okay? Don't do that. What I would do is use the scholarly source to help you analyze the primary sources, okay? So, you know, you imagine you make a claim, and you've got your 2 support sandwiches. The evidence for each one is based in quotes from the film or objective description. You've got your time code, and then the analysis. You interpret it, right? When you're interpreting the quote, or when you're interpreting the details from the film, that's when you can bring in Patricia Hill Collins to talk about Black masculinity, right? To help you substantiate, right, your interpretation of Jamie Foxx's performance, right, at that point, right? Or you want to bring in Judith Lorber when you're analyzing, what's the AI's character name from Ex Machina? I'm blanking on it right now. But, you know, you get what I'm saying there, right? So I would say use the scholarly sources in the analysis portion of your support sandwiches, okay? I think that would enhance your analysis, your interpretations, okay? You can use those scholarly sources basically in 2 ways: directly by quoting them, okay? And they're kind of there to back up what you have to say. And indirectly by paraphrasing ideas that they have, right? But in any case, you are pulling from their arguments, right, that have been published. So you should use a parenthetical citation whenever you are incorporating their ideas or their words into your analysis, okay? Regina, there are other ways to use scholarly sources too. Like I think a very creative way is maybe to begin the paper with a quote from one of the scholars, right? That you start to unpack and you start to reveal, you know, when we take this idea and apply it to the film, it kind of problematizes a representation of masculinity or femininity, right? So there are different ways you can do it. You can put it in the introduction, okay? I think that where we're at in the semester, the most effective way is to draw upon scholarly sources in your analysis, okay? So even if you did it, you know, in each of the body paragraphs just one time, I think that would be more than enough, okay? I'll tell you what wouldn't be enough. If you only quote them once in the whole paper, okay? That would be like the bare minimum to meet the requirement, right? That probably wouldn't serve you well with your analysis either, okay? So does that answer your question, Regina?
Yeah, it does. Thank you.
Okay, good, good. Great question. I'm going to check the chat, see if there's anything that I missed. Okay, I answered. Well, if there's nothing else at the moment, then that'll conclude our Q&A. Feel free to email me if you have any other questions. If you want to set up an individual, a one-on-one Zoom meeting, we can do that too. You know, those office hours are suggested times. That's when I'm guaranteed to be available. We can set up Zoom meetings during the office hour because that's what it's for. It'd be like you coming into my office, right? Or we can set up Zoom meetings for outside of those office hours that are listed. Okay. And I'll do my best to be flexible and try to accommodate your schedule request. All right. So if that's all, thank you for coming by, and I look forward to working with you all throughout the rest of the semester. All right, we're getting started now. Right now, the real semester begins. We get our writing in. Okay. Thank you all. Good luck. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.